Weirdlings! Hi, my name is Danielle, and in case you don't know me, then I am the creative human that does arty videos and sometimes weird other videos on this channel. Today, I want to talk to you guys about the, the comparisons between Disney and Studio Ghibli. So we're gonna go ahead and hop into it, and I'm just gonna get started because my computer only has a certain amount of juice. So I have to make this video in one take, and there's gonna be very minimal like cuts and things between stuff. So I apologize if it's like a little ranty, but maybe it'll feel more conversational. I have no idea. So let's get started. The first point that I want to talk about is the origin stories between Disney and Ghibli. So whenever we talk about Disney, we're gonna have to talk about Brothers Grimm because a lot of the stories that come from Disney are based off Brothers Grimm stories. In case you don't know, spoilers, Brothers Grimm are usually very, very dark and very, very fear-based stories that have, there's a word for that, but, there's stories that have morals at the end of them, so, they're usually based in fear because that was the way that people approached teaching lessons to children back in the day whenever most of these movies were made. So it is a very interesting and slightly terrifying approach to teaching children how to behave. Another view to that is that whenever Disney borrowed those stories from Brothers Grimm, of course they changed them so that they had a more happy and approachable ending, but a lot of the stories are similar in the way that they approach the female characters and the way that they package things. What's amazing about Studio Ghibli and the way that they have approached their movies is Miyazaki is the person who made Studio Ghibli what it is, so he pulled from a lot of his own personal experiences growing up, the resistance for the way that he wanted things to be in the animation industry where he was entering at the time, and it also incorporated a lot of elements to reflect some of the lessons that he wished he would have learned or that he wanted to appropriate back into his culture and community, like environmental issues and appreciating one another and empowering young women. So I think it's really important to look at the origins of Disney versus Ghibli and understand where you're coming from, what types of backgrounds you're looking at, and how those stories originated and came to be in the first place. So point one. Point two, we're gonna move into character arc, plot development, kind of things. This one is gonna be a little bit more freeform. There's kind of a lot to go through here, but I'm gonna give some examples of specific movies so that you can see kind of the positive, negative, and comparisons or compromises that happen. So the movies that I want to talk about that are the most similar are gonna be Ponyo and Ariel, or The Little Mermaid. So The Little Mermaid, obviously, is going to be about a young woman. She's 13 or 15 or a teenager, and she makes selfish decisions that are based mostly around her becoming a human and getting a male interest in her life and being a princess and defying her father. So Ponyo in this way is really similar too. Ponyo is a princess. She defies her father. She wants to be human. The main difference here between the two is that their age is very different, and that kind of leads to a mentality shift between the two, and the consequences are different. So let's go back to The Little Mermaid. Ariel is a teenager, so she is able to be aware of what the consequences are for her decisions, and she chooses to make them anyway. This also kind of ties into the secondary character developments there because she has her family and her friends there to counsel her and to try to steer her in the right direction. She chooses not to listen to them, and then, the story ensues. Ponyo is very similar. She goes against her family and she defies that situation, and so the consequences are met and they're very dire. However, she's 5 years old, so it makes a lot more sense that she is selfish because all she knows is her experience. She doesn't have empathy the way that a teenager is conditioned to understand. Now, teenagers lose empathy whenever they are developing because they're trying to test their limits and boundaries on, authority. However, when you're 5, you don't think about things like that. The difference in consequences is that Ariel's actions mostly only affect her family, and the kingdom that she lives in. Whereas when Ponyo turns into a person, it could throw off the entire balance of the world that she lives in, meaning that the whole world would flood, and that it sets off, like, I can't remember exactly what they say, but it sets off the whole entire world, and the whole world could flood if she becomes a person without the right things lining up. So there is a difference there. However, Ponyo's only 5, so she doesn't understand the consequences. She is not capable of perceiving all of those things, whereas Ariel has the mental capacity to evaluate her decisions and understand consequences. So there is a difference there. But it is worth noting that both movies do have pitfalls and shortcomings in terms of character development for the girls. However, I think that the supporting cast in both characters is really amazing. You see a lot of mental shift for the families and the fathers especially. They both go from being very reserved and wanting to keep their daughter closed off from the world, and then at the end they both have very realizing experiences where they allow their daughter to make her own decisions and do the things that she's capable of, blah, 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 blah. So I think it's really exciting to evaluate and appreciate the parents in this movie, because that is another point that I would like to make. Parental situations in Disney versus Ghibli are very different. A lot of Disney movies either dispel the parents completely or have some kind of tragedy that happens, and they are no longer in the picture or in the story. This to me is really disconcerting, because a lot of these kids are making really crazy decisions without any kind of guidance or moral compass or any kind of direction that's given by an authority figure, which is very rare in a real life scenario. So I feel like the way that they're trying to package this in order to present it to a child is very misguiding, because you don't have that parental filter that's supposed to help guide the child through their life and things like that. Another evaluation on the Ghibli side is that a lot of parents are present in these films. I wouldn't say all of them. I can't necessarily pinpoint if Laputa has parents in there, but I think there's a grandpa or some sort of figure for the girl that's in that story. So other than that, you do see from Up on Poppy Hill, there is absolutely a family. From Ponyo, there's absolutely a family. Princess Mononoke, there's a whole community and family going on. So there's a lot to digest in terms of familial bonding and the way that the society that you're working within affects the way that that person makes their actions. So I think that there's a lot more going on socially in the Ghibli films whenever they're considering what's going on with the families and the other things versus the Disney aspect, where a lot of that is missing. Another plot point that I'm going to use 2 movies to describe is going to be the fundamental pushing up of female leads. Yes, a lot of Disney movies have female princesses as their leads. However, I wouldn't necessarily say all of them are terribly strong or convincing characters. Snow White is a very young teenager, and I feel like she's put in a lot of really crazy adulty situations, so there's a lot to digest there. But I think a really good comparison for good plot points and developments for both would be Mulan versus Princess Mononoke. Now, Mulan is really amazing because I find that they have a very strong and dedicated female lead. She has a lot of point and purpose. Her character arc does develop. She does change over time. Her family is present, and she is supported throughout most of the film. Yes, she is found out that she is a woman, and the people in her community are not reciprocative of that at first. They're not excited about that. However, it's amazing to me that the Huns, whenever they find out that she's a woman, they don't want to kill her because she's a woman. They want to kill her because she's, fighting them. In the Hun community, women were very much equal. They had their own situations. They were able to get married and divorced as they pleased. They worked alongside their men. They fought alongside their men, and they were a lot more free and present in their situations than other cultures and situations. So I think it's really exciting that maybe it wasn't necessarily made a huge point in the movie, but it is something to consider and appreciate that Mulan is actualized as a very strong person. And she does have a really amazing cast of supporting characters that lead to a really dynamic storytelling experience. For Princess Mononoke, a lot of similar stuff is going on. The female lead is really, really complex and she has a lot going on. There's also a really amazing male character that comes to her aid, and then there is the the female, like, I guess you would call her like a villain, but you know, really, she is a complex, dynamic female individual who is trying to progress society in the only way that she can see, which is the mechanizing of things with the guns and all the things that she's doing there. And she employs a lot of women in order to do that work. And what's really, really great is that the villain aspect of that movie is really cool because villain is the wrong word. Like, she's not a bad person. I think that she's very dedicated to her soldiers and their families, and she's very much looking out for them and the progress of society. However, the progress of that particular situation does require the destruction of the forest in order to make room. So there is a very complex situation to be considered there. And I think it's really important to evaluate that both movies are so strong in their female leads and that they really empower the women in those particular movies to really like ascend into their positions at the end, which is super great. Now, do I think that both studios do this consistently? No. I would very much venture to say that Studio Ghibli represents women much more strong and independently in a much more acceptable and progressive light, and I think it is more becoming of the characters and the people that are watching them to gain the knowledge and experiences that are coming out of them versus the Disney films that I feel like are very much tired rhetorics that happen over and over and over again. Granted, I will go ahead and say that because of the timeline that Disney is on, they have been doing this for a lot longer, and so a lot of the pre-Renaissance movies, like pre-Ariel, they come from a place where they needed to keep the funding low, so they recycled scenes and they came up with formulas that allowed them to do that. So if you look at The Jungle Book, the dancing that the characters do whenever they're at the orangutan's house or whatever, that scene can be seen and re-replicated not only in the Aristocats, but also in the Robin Hood movie, the animated Robin Hood movie. So if you watch all three of those, then you can see the scenes that are recycled, and you can see that there is a formula to allow certain animations to be reutilized so that they could save money, and so that they could save cells, and so that they could just repurpose characters and plot points in order to get to those conclusions, to reuse those scenes. In Studio Ghibli, I feel like the only thing that's really reutilized is the Soot Sprite characters and a couple of other small secondary characters that appear throughout a couple of different movies. And then there's a general underpinning of environmental concerns, and that pulls from Miyazaki's past experiences living near a river and seeing a lot of pollution and stuff, and then he was also involved in World War II, I think. So, sorry, it's a lot. But World War II, it really influenced a lot of his airplane designs and things like that, and it also influenced that he wanted people to stay close and connected and not fight, and try to better everybody, better society, keep things moving in a positive direction. While maintaining a consciousness for, your family, your community, the environment, etc. So these are all important things to consider whenever you are watching Disney films and Ghibli films and showing them to your children. Guys, how do you feel about these things? Is it terribly obvious that I prefer Ghibli films versus Disney? What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Obviously, this is a subject that I'm super duper jazzed about, and of course I peppered my opinions throughout the entire thing. However, I hope that you guys understand that I did a lot of research and that this is something that I've thought about for a really long time. So I'm really excited to hear your thoughts and opinions and talk to me about it. Yay! Yay! Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and check out me and the rest of the Weirdlings at theweirdlings.com. Also, a big thank you to Mary the Knitting Dev for asking a similarly inspiring question when she asked why I preferred Eastern animation styles to Western animation styles. So this is kind of like an offshoot question or an offshoot video from that question. So there we go. You guys, did you get your Swear Cat sticker pack over at dftba.com? If you didn't, please go ahead and check out the link below so that you can get your Swear Cat sticker pack today.